Okay, this group knows better than almost any that long term, the university contributes greatly to the city, the state, the world. But the question that I've always faced is, since we face so many complex problems, how do we act immediately? And if we want universities to have immediate impact, we need to engage today's students. They're the best trained that we've got. We need to engage them today in hands-on projects that confront real problems. This has always been the objective of action research. And in particular, the goal is to organize, prepare, and support students as they attack real-world problems, and to do so on a large scale. And I've been writing about this for a while, back to when issues were merely urgent, if we can remember back that far. We're now faced with multiple crises, but I have formed a group of initial partners. Many of them you know, and they're all doing fabulous work, but one common theme is that it's all too hard. It should be easier to do this. And not only should it be easier, we should learn from each project. Student projects in particular end up in PDFs and some archive at best, and we never get to address the systematic problems of learning. And so that's one of the esoteric goals. The other is the mundane one of just making it easier to do. And I'm delighted that all these people all these centers have agreed to launch in with this. And we have our technology partner who's really made it much easier. I've long been looking for a toolbox that would provide the tools to make all these projects easier to do: coalition formation, project communications, project management. And Regina Lee, our powerless GSR, actually found the Monday.com operating system, which they call a work operating system, and introduced us to discussions with actually Ron Shiloh, who is their manager of academic partnerships. And they in Monday.com are so enthusiastic about action research and the potential benefit that it has for the world that they're providing 250,000 professional licenses for the Epicenter to distribute for free. Now, one of the problems with that is that when you have a work operating system that can do anything, entering it becomes a daunting task. So we've tried to assemble a team that can really help every one of these centers and everybody who does get engaged on board to the platform with a lot more ease. And I'd like to introduce you to the team that really is driving this right now. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Anand Bodapati has only recently joined, but has already had a dramatic impact. He's an associate professor and now the director of technology for this. And he and I have been talking about how do you learn at scale from these kinds of projects for a long time. But he's actually put together a brilliant kind of introduction to his approach. If there are any real geeks among us, I'll send you a link to his a YouTube talk chat that he and I had that kind of lays it out. That's actually on the next slide, which we will be, or a couple slides down, which we will be sharing. I'd also like to give great credit to Jessica Chase, a UCLA alum, who has been a major force in actually making this happen. As a professor emeritus, I never would have gotten nearly this far without her. Another very recent addition is Christina Brittenham, who's the Director of Educational Outreach. I'm particularly interested in connecting her with Amy Roat and the other people that are doing such interesting things with students bridging to the K-12 education centers. So we'll have that. And also, of course, Regina Lee, who, if she had power at her in Saratoga, would be talking a little bit later. But first, I'd like to turn it over to Jessica to introduce herself and to talk about direct student initiatives and waking up the student population. Jessica?
Thanks, Lee. Hi, everyone. So like Lee said, my name is Jessica Chase. And as he mentioned, I am a UCLA alum, but the biggest point that I brought to Lee early on when we started talking about this is that I was a student at UCLA who did not do any research, which I don't mean to bring to all of you with such pride, but it was a time where I wanted to be very hands-on. I wanted to get right into things. I spent the past couple of years out of college working in political organizing and on campaigns, a very different world. And I was in a rush to get to real things that had a real impact. And my image, my misinformed one of research, was something that stayed in a PDF on the shelf that, was something that you did that was just academic, that didn't have impact otherwise. I had no idea what was going on at UCLA, even when I was there, much less what's going on now. I didn't have the information, I didn't have the access. So the next kind of stage of this, what my role is and has been for the past couple of months, are strategic planning, executing, developing our templates in Monday, and getting our centers that are our partners so far in our Alliance for Action Research onto Monday.com, functional on it, using it, and getting all the best use out of it, is to look forward to a point where we can lower the barrier of access. And that's something that Lee and I talk about a lot, so that any student who wants to do good in the world can come and find the center that has the projects they want to be part of. Right now, we're at a stage where we want to make the projects that are already happening easier. We want to transition things from spreadsheets into Monday, where you can work at project management on a very different scale with a level of dynamic interaction that's really unmatched. But the future is to have an unaffiliated student be able to find and get access to these kinds of resources, realize that their good idea can actually become something, and get into research in the way that I wish I had while I was still a student. So that's a little piece of what this means to me. This is one of my favorite quotes that I've said a lot in the process of developing this, that you can't be what you can't see. It's not possible to understand the impact that you can have as one singular student unless you see an example of another student having done that before you. And this ties back to what Lee is saying about long-term learning from projects. And I'll just quickly quote Anand Bodapati from the video that Lee referenced. One of the things he said is that his teams at Anderson, they'll work with an outside partner on a project, and they'll each do 15% of the work, but they end up covering the same 15%, the first 15%. They do the initial period of a project, but then one project does not learn from the one that came before it. And that's simplification of what he put together. But that positionality, that learning over time, is tied into bringing unaffiliated students who would not otherwise think about research, into the fold. I think that increases the diversity of projects across the board. And over time, it will mean that research becomes more and more accessible to the general student population versus anything more specific. And yeah, on this slide, which Regina was going to speak to, no, it's a good transition, actually, because I think that it works perfectly. On this slide, Regina, as a MPH student, is coming from the perspective, and I think it's important, we mentioned this, to note, she found Monday.com and found it useful for her purposes as a GSR, where she is in her life right now, working remotely as we all are. This was really useful for her. And so she's put together a couple of prototypes after interviewing MPH students as well as MS students. MPH students concerning their field work and tracking their activities, things like weekly logs when hours are irregular due to COVID. And for MS thesis work, just simple tasks like creating a bibliography that in a thesis scale to such a huge amount so that you need a tool like this to manage it. With Monday, you have free access to this platform to use automations, a lot of dynamic features, and most importantly here, there's so much to Monday. You can look it up, you can look at some of their webinars. The whole point of what we want to be, and what I want to be, hopefully, is a resource to those who want to use this so that you understand how to use it, you get the best use case out of it. Like Lee said, Monday.com likes to advertise itself as being able to do anything, which is great, but you need it to do that one thing that you actually need help on. So if you think about this in terms of keeping your tasks organized being able to view things in terms of Gantt charts, in terms of Kanbans, different views of project management. There's so much to unpack here that I shouldn't get into, but a couple of specific use cases that we've started on are based on student need, are based on what we have heard from students needs to happen for them to be able to manage their workload, particularly in the midst of the pandemic. And in a way that I think we know work is changing as we move out of remote work, hopefully at some point into the coming years, we are going to learn lessons from it. It's going to make things simpler that we've learned how to be so online with this. I think that's most of what we wanted to say about the fieldwork prototypes. Lee, if I can hand it back over to you.
Yes, I'm certainly not going to put Katie on the spot, but Katie has been using it to organize some of her activities within HCI, and we hope to continue to help her to do that. I'd also like to introduce but really not have speak Christina Brittenham, who has just joined us in educational outreach. She is an attorney by training for a decade before, maybe more, before she came on for a master's degree in education at UCLA. So she's very much part of our community and wants to help reach between UCLA and the K-12 local and I guess broader national population. So you'll have a chance in the future to hear from Christina, but it's too soon on board to expect anything right now. So I do want to talk about next steps. Anand really solved two problems for me. The problem of knowledge discovery and management is a very, very thorny one. And I do have allies that can help with this, but they're so far ahead of me, I can't even really talk to them, but Anand can. The Smart Nations Foundation is some really high level IT geeks who are moving the UN Sustainable Development Goals forward by developing information infrastructure for Africa and other parts of the world. And they have some brilliant people in knowledge management. And Anand will be the guy that really talks to them. He also teaches in the new business analytics program, the Masters of Science program at Anderson, and has run into this constant problem of finding that student teams do only the first 15% over and over and over again. So he's going to reorient his course so that all the practical projects that they do will be supporting action research teams that use Monday.com. So they'll be developing business analytics skills that make the rest of our tasks easier. I also wanted to talk, Alex Korb teaches a course in HCI called Positive Neuroscience. And he and I have been talking about a session in his spring class on that he's going to develop with Joey Cooper, who's a neuropsychiatrist, and on the neuropsychiatric benefits of participating in action research. And he kind of gave a boost to this current push by saying, I'm going to get all these students charged up on doing action research, but you don't want to get them dressed for the party and have them know where to go. So hopefully by the spring, when that launches, we will have the ability to send all these students to the projects that are being done by all the centers. We will be back on campus. This can be done remotely, of course, but we will hopefully be back on campus in the fall, and having this energized group of students that come out of Alex's class and stimulating the demand campus-wide for action research. I hope that we have a big stream of things. And with 250,000 free professional licenses to distribute, I do expect to have enough to help all action centers in the UC system, given that this is the Healthy Campus Network, after all, not just the Healthy Campus initiative at UCLA. And with that, I'm certainly willing to answer any questions or direct them to other people that might be able to answer. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Lee, for that. It's a great, I think, resource for many of us. And are there any questions or comments at this point?
I can certainly answer Annalia's question in the chat, which is a great one. Something that I don't have an immediate answer to. She asked about literature on reducing barriers to understanding and accessing research. One of the things that I think is important about the purpose of the Epicenter and the concept of it that we've discussed a lot is that we want to do our best to function as a hub, as a nexus, to bring together people that don't normally speak to each other. For example, a company like Monday.com, which is just beginning to build up their academic department and the concept of doing this at all. They're looking to us to build the templates of using their system for more advanced research. But if we can connect that conversation down to a student team, to a grad student team, whatever levels that we can do, I think we're going to open up opportunities for that discussion to happen. I'm sure there's existing literature on it, but one of the reasons we have folks like Christina on board to be able to say, you know, the next person who wants to take on that task of understanding research for folks up to high school education, that's something that we can then house and give a home to and have the resources to. So a different answer than I think your question, but something that I definitely want to look into more. It's a great point.
And I also want to say that we're an epicenter as opposed to a center, not merely because we don't have an endowment, but we don't do the research ourselves. We're just trying to make it easier for all the centers and people that want to do action research to make it easier. Our goal is not to reinvent what other centers are doing and doing well. We just want to make it easier and learn. That's the key.
Yeah, as I see it, it's really giving the strength of a handoff to the next team for continuing the research and going deeper or broader in whatever work they're doing. And many of us do that, but we don't have this. This is a tool that will basically encapsulate that knowledge and experience. So I think that.
Well,
What
yeah,
is the neuroscience behind the action? What are the benefits of the neuroscience behind action research? I'd love to hear what.
Well, we're going to have a full lecture from Alex in the spring, and we have just a little bit on the website. The website is now live, and we'll send those links to all of you, and as is the Monday platform for anybody who wants to get on. But I'm not satisfied with the boilerplate material that we had on there right now. We have better stuff on action research in general, but the neuroscience benefits are being put together by our two experts, and Joey is one of the co-founders of the National Neuroscience Curriculum Initiative, and so he's taking this whole thing seriously.